Hey, I'm out in the shop. It's Chuck, and we're going to be talking ice rods for walleye fishing. I've had people walk up to me when I was doing shows or working at one of the retail stops, and you know, everybody asks, "Well, what's the best walleye rod?" I said, "Well, the best walleye rod is the one that feels the best for you." In my case, I absolutely love the St. Croix Avids, uh, first generation, retired, even and the newer ones. And the reason is because I like a faster tip. You'll see with this rod, there's not a lot of bend there, right? So if I feel something, I'm setting the hook. I'm not getting a lot of play. It's all feel. I'm not watching the rod tip like some of the softer rods are used with the softer rods. This particular one's a 27 inch, and I use this inside my Kenai Stealth from Clam. And the reason I'm doing that is because let's say I got a fish on, I go to set the hook, I'm not thumping the top of the roof of the shack. You know, with the right fish or the wrong fish, I might break that tip. Definitely not something you want to get in the habit of doing. Now, there are different lengths. Like this is a small one man shack, but it's got a fairly high roof. But between 24 and 28 inches is what you want to use inside your smaller shanties. And this 27 inch is a nice balance. It splits the difference. I can use a number 5 jigging wrap. I can use a quarter-ounce buckshot spoon. I can do a lot of things with this little rod. Next up, I've got a slightly bigger shanty, and conversely, a slightly bigger rod. Now, the Nanook from Clam is a small two-man shack, or in my case, it's a very roomy one-man shack that's fairly lightweight. And because of the height of the shack, I'm able to go a little bit longer. Still getting that fast hit, but this is a 30-inch rod. I'm still fishing basically the same types of lures as I was the 27. Now, when I get into my big Jason Mitchell, or even if I'm outside, this is a 32-inch. This rod's from 2004. It's been around a long time, and it's one of my favorites. Unfortunately, it's been retired, but there are still the rest of the Avid family to choose from. And the reason I still use this compared to the newer rods is it's very similar in its action. I feel a fish, I set the hook. Now this one's got a little 1/6 ounce spoon, one of my favorite weights. I can also use a quarter, I can use 3/8, no problem at all. Now if I want to go a little heavier inside the shack or if I want to fish outside, this is a 36-inch medium heavy. Again, very fast tip, almost like an extra fast. This one's got a number 5 jigging wrap on it. I could go to a number 7 and I'm not sacrificing anything as far as the performance of the rod. Now look at this reel. This dial has got monofilament on. And I know we were going to talk about ice, just the rods themselves. But just recently, last week, I was asked a question, why don't I use braid? And my answer was that I hardly ever, if ever, use braid when it comes to ice fishing. Now, the reason why is monofilaments or water sticks to braid. All right, so I'm checking my baits. I might catch a fish. I'm reeling my line up. Water is coming back up that line. Sure, some of it's going to get shut off by the eyes on the rod, but enough of it's going to get back to where if it's cold enough, it will freeze that spool, that line on the spool, solid. Right, so one, I've got to hand strip it out, which isn't easy, and braid usually cuts a nice little crease in your finger when you're doing it. And then let's say I did get that line off and I am back to fishing. I've got a nice fish on all of a sudden. So I'm fighting that fish. It's pulling some drag. I can hear the reel screaming a little bit. Guy next to me can hear the reel screaming a little bit. Then all of a sudden it finds a frozen spot that I didn't know was there. It locks up tight. There's a good chance I'm going to lose that fish because of that. So that's why I stick with monofilament. It just doesn't do that. So remember, find a rod that feels good to you. Usually, if you like one in particular, you're going to want to buy the same brand, the same model. In my case, the St. Croix Avids. And then your next question is going to be, how am I going to fish this rod? Am I inside? Am I outside? What size is my shack? Am I using one shack or do I have multiples? So it's Christmas. Get out there. If you don't have one already and you're looking for something, and I'm not talking about presents, it's go out and buy it now because ice fishing is around the corner and people are snapping these things up. So find out the rod that feels best for you. Go out and get it before it's too late.